she dressed like a martyr. That was the first thing I understood when I helped her into her gown that morning. The deep, blood-red petticoat beneath the black satin, the crimson bodice, the scarlet sleeves she had chosen herself, days in advance. She had planned every detail of this morning the way other women plan a wedding. And I, Margaret, her lady since the years in France when she was still a queen with a crown on her head and not merely a title, had pressed that gown the night before with shaking hands, not yet willing to believe I was preparing her for death. It was the 8th of February, 1587, Fotheringhay Castle. The frost had settled hard on the Northamptonshire fields, and the great hall where they had constructed the scaffold smelled of sawdust and cold stone. I had served Mary Stuart for over 20 years. I had braided her hair when it was auburn and thick. I had watched it thin and gray in the years of captivity, 19 years imprisoned by a cousin who feared her more than she ever admitted. And now I was being told I could not accompany her to the block. She overruled them. She insisted. She said she would not walk to her death surrounded only by Protestant strangers. What they don't tell you in the history books, what they couldn't possibly capture in any official account written by men who watched from a distance, is what she said to me privately, in that stone chamber, in the last hour before they came for her. If you want to know what a queen sounds like when she is completely unafraid, stay with me, because this story will change what you think courage means. And if it moves you, subscribe, and don't go anywhere, because what happened in that hall in the next 2 hours is one of the most extraordinary final acts in 500 years of recorded history. Life inside Fotheringhay was not what people imagine when they picture a queen in captivity. By 1587, Mary had been a prisoner of Elizabeth I for nearly 19 years, longer than most of her ladies had been alive when they first entered her service. And yet, within those walls, she had built something. A world within a world. A court within a cage. Her chambers were hung with embroidered cloth she had stitched herself. Thousands of hours of needlework, panels of silk and velvet depicting flowers, animals, and allegories that historians would later recognize as coded messages, quiet protests, theological arguments made in thread. One panel, still surviving today, shows a pruned vine with new growth emerging from the cut. She knew exactly what she was saying. She kept a small household, around 30 servants and attendants in her final years. We ate well enough. There was wine from France, which she requested specifically, and her physician attended her regularly for the rheumatism that had stiffened her joints from the damp English winters. She moved slowly by then and leaned on a staff to walk. But she carried herself as though the ground beneath her feet was still the floor of the palace of Holyrood House. She rose each morning before dawn to pray. Her faith was not performance. I witnessed it every day in private. In the small oratory she maintained with its silver crucifix and her personal book of hours, which she held so often the gilding had worn from the cover. She kept 2 dogs, small, white, and completely devoted to her. They slept at the foot of her bed and followed her to every room. On the morning of the execution, they followed her to the Great Hall too, and no one had the heart to stop them. The warrant had existed for months before they used it. Elizabeth signed Mary's death warrant on the 1st of February, 1587. Then she set it aside. Her Secretary of State, William Davison, later claimed she told him to have it sealed but not yet dispatched, that she wanted more time, or perhaps another solution, something quieter than a public execution of an anointed queen. Historians still debate what Elizabeth truly intended. What we know is that her council, led by William Cecil, made the decision themselves. They dispatched the warrant without waiting for explicit royal command. When Elizabeth learned the execution had been carried out, she reportedly collapsed in grief, or performed grief, depending on which account you believe. We did not know any of this inside Fotheringhay. What we knew were smaller things. The extra guards posted at the gates in late January, the way the steward avoided Mary's eyes when he delivered her meals, the arrival of the Earl of Shrewsbury and the Earl of Kent on the 7th of February, the evening before, when they informed her formally that she would die in the morning. She had asked for her chaplain. They refused. A Protestant dean was offered instead. She declined him. She spent that final evening writing letters to her brother-in-law, King Henry III of France, to her physician, to her servants, arranging small bequests, making sure each person who had served her would receive something after she was gone. She did not sleep. I did not sleep. The candles burned all the way down. There was one letter she wrote and sealed without telling me its contents. She addressed it to Elizabeth. We never learned what it said. They came for her at 8 o'clock in the morning. The great hall had been prepared since before dawn, a low wooden scaffold, 2 feet high, draped in black cloth, positioned at the center of the room. Nearly 300 witnesses had assembled, earls, knights, sheriffs, servants of the castle. The room was silent in the way that only rooms full of people trying not to breathe can be silent. She walked in leaning on her ivory staff, dressed entirely in black. And then, in front of every witness in that hall, she removed it. Beneath the black, she was dressed head to foot in crimson, the color of Catholic martyrdom, the color she had chosen deliberately, strategically, theologically. In one gesture, without a single word, she had transformed her execution into a statement that would outlast everyone in that room. The gasps were audible. The Earl of Kent's expression, recorded by witnesses, was one of pure fury. She had outmaneuvered them all, and she hadn't moved from the spot. She knelt at the block and began to pray aloud in Latin. Her voice was steady. I could hear it from where I stood, pressing my hands together so hard my knuckles had gone white. The executioner required 3 strikes. This is in the official record. What is also in the record, what the witnesses could not omit despite themselves, is that when it was over, one of her small white dogs emerged from beneath her skirts where it had been hiding and refused to leave her side. They could not remove it. It lay down beside her and would not move. In all my years of service, in all the courts and castles and chapels I had passed through at her side, I had never seen anything as loyal or as heartbroken as that small, white, trembling dog. And I have never forgotten it. They buried her first at Peterborough Cathedral, quietly, without the ceremony her rank demanded. In a tomb positioned, some historians note, directly across from the tomb of Catherine of Aragon. 2 queens discarded by the English crown, sharing the same cathedral floor in death. Whether this was deliberate or accidental, no one has ever confirmed. She stayed there for 25 years. In 1612, her son, King James I of England, the same child she had not seen since he was 10 months old, the same son who had not intervened to save her life, ordered her body exhumed and reinterred at Westminster Abbey in a tomb of white marble, larger and more elaborate than Elizabeth's own monument placed directly opposite. Historians have read this as guilt, as politics, as both. The letters she wrote on her final night survived. Her letter to Henry III of France was delivered and preserved. In it, she described her death as a martyrdom suffered for her faith, and asked him to pay her servants their wages, because she did not trust the English crown to honor them. She was right not to trust them. Her needlework panels survive too, scattered across collections in Scotland, England, and France, stitched by a woman with stiffened hands in a cold castle. They are still studied by historians today, decoded, catalogued, argued over. Every thread a word she wasn't allowed to speak aloud. And the dog. The dog was taken from the hall, washed, and given to one of her ladies to keep. I like to think it was me. What Mary understood, in ways her captors never did, is that execution can silence a voice, but cannot erase a life fully lived. Not if that life was witnessed, remembered, and passed forward by the people who loved her. You have just witnessed it. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who loves history. Because Mary Stuart deserved to be remembered as more than a political inconvenience. She was a queen, a mother, a strategist, and a woman who chose every detail of her final morning with absolute intention. Now you know what it felt like to be in that room.